Hello and welcome to the Love, Listen, Talk, Repeat podcast. I'm Wendy Capewell, your podcast host, as well as being a counsellor and psychotherapist, author, and speaker. In each of these podcast episodes, I'll be joined by various guests, sharing their expertise and experiences on different subjects. So, let's get on with this week's show. Today I've got Kirstine Weaver with me, and she describes herself, or she has no, I'm going to start again, Kirstine, because that's not right. Kirstine Weaver is my guest today, and we're talking about the fact that she's got a group that she supports, which is called Neuroquirky. And I think that's really fascinating. But I want to know more about this Neuroquirky you talk about. So, Kirstine, I'm going to hand over to you.
Oh, thanks. So I'm diagnosed with ADHD, which I only discovered relatively recently in the last decade. And I've been exploring all of my other aspects of myself, and I've got a lot of neurodiverse traits, but no, neurodivergent. This is what happens. I get muddled with the difference between neurodiverse and neurodivergent, and when I talk about it, then I've used the term neurowonky before, because I'm like, which one is it? No, I'm just going to forget about that. And the other day when I was talking to someone, I came out with neuroquirky, and I was like, that's brilliant. That's what it is, because I've got a lot of aspects in me that are like a little bit OCD. I've got friends who are very OCD, and I'm not as bad as they are, but I've got a bit, I can recognize my OCD. I've got my ADHD isn't as bad as some of my friends are, but I'm medicated for ADHD, and so on. There's lots of different aspects of myself, right. And so my aim for the group is to talk about my bits, to try and help people to understand their aspects of themselves.
Yeah. And when you're talking about OCD, for example, I have traits of it. You know, there's certain things that I want in a certain way, but it doesn't rule my life. But I know I'm on that spectrum. Yes. Definitely. And I know when it kind of comes out in me, because if I'm stressed, then that will come out in me. It will be about counting things. And and I recognize it, but I know it doesn't interfere in my life. But I think, and one of my clients actually described her, she made this description, which I absolutely love. And she talked about being paddling in the shallows of autism. And I thought, because we're all on that continuum somewhere along the line, even if we're just paddling in the shallows, some of those things could come out. But that's great.
I've got a lot of sensory issues, and I'm waiting for an autism diagnosis, which is such a massive privilege. And I've been waiting for that for a long time to understand how much that is a part of me as well. But sensory issues can build up quite a lot of my challenges, and when I'm more stressed, then things come up more. I have food issues, and when I can tell when I'm relaxed, then food is not a problem. But as soon as I'm starting to get stressed about other areas of my life, then food starts to, it's like I have to control it, or Yeah.
So ADHD, let's talk about that and your experience of it, because I think, there are a lot of people who struggle, and I know a lot of people who want to try and understand it. Now, before we do that, I want to kind of quantify this by saying that for me, if someone comes to me for help and they say they have a diagnosis, I put it aside. I understand that some people, they find it really helpful to find that they've got a diagnosis of some kind. But it would be disrespectful of me if I actually just treated the diagnosis rather than finding out how that person was struggling with it, how it affected them. And I think sometimes there are people that there's a danger that if we have that diagnosis or label, we can easily feel our lives are defined by that. We are defined in that way. And actually we're so broad as people. We've got so many different aspects to our lives. I think people can just hang their hat on it, and then they're not noticing the rest of themselves.
Yeah. Well, for me, then I've had anxiety all my life.
Right.
I've had this pressure on me to achieve, to do more.
Okay.
And when I have the overthinking version of ADHD, which I think some people refer to it was without the H, ADD. And so, yeah, for me, the hyperactivity is often, looking back, then the hyperactivity has been in the mind. It's been looking out the window and daydreaming. It's so when I was at school, then because I was clever, then I was left alone to look out the window lots. When I was, but I never learned to revise. And so as I started progressing through school, then my grades were slipping. And I just, so also with relationships, with friendships, then I couldn't connect with other people. Just this feeling of anxiety of why am I not like everyone else? Why can't I do things the way that other people tell me that I should be able to do them? So like this morning, they're getting ready for this call, then I knew that it would take me like 2 hours to make sure that I got all my things ready, because it wasn't just a case of doing things methodically on the list. It was, right, I need to do that, then I need to go and get distracted by something for a little bit, then I need to come back to it. Right. And just like when I got the diagnosis, which was due to like a passing conversation with someone that I was seeing about my daughter, that someone, a paediatric consultant, encouraged me to investigate it. Then just like a light bulb went off. It was like, this is why I can't do things the way that people tell me to do, because my brain just doesn't work that way. And so since I've had medication, then things have calmed down. But actually, even just getting the understanding that my brain works differently, that anxiety calmed down no end.
Yes, and that's why I say I think it's good to often have something identified, as long as you don't define yourself in that way, because there's so much more to you than having that ADHD diagnosis. Yes. That you are, we've talked before, and there's such a lot more in your life, and I think some people can just forget that. And yes, of course it can feel overwhelming. I appreciate that, but equally it doesn't define you, and it doesn't just mean that that's it.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
But that's interesting where you say you can't, it took you 2 hours this morning to get to prepare because you need that distraction between times of doing something that needs to be done, if you like. Am I getting it right?
Yeah.
And then just distracting yourself for a while and then being able to come back to it. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, because
Right.
with things that I do every day, then it's better for me to not think about it at all and just get things in order, go out the door. So
Right.
with my regular routines, then then it's very much the other way. But yeah, with things that are new, then I get worried that I'm going to forget things, and so yeah, if I do things quickly in that way, then I will forget things, and
And that will add to your anxiety, of course.
yes,
Yeah.
which will just make me panic. And yeah, yes, and I know that I'm since I've been on the medication, then everything's calmed down enough that I've been able to start working through some of these trauma things that I've had from my childhood, realizing that some of my panic is not related to now. It's related to when I was much younger, but it still comes back as flashbacks.
Yes, and that's all to do with our brain, and it's so clever. But yes, it can. Yes, as you say, it can bring back those triggers of past traumas.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it can overwhelm, obviously, but and it's all very well, but kind of saying, oh well, it belongs in the past, but sometimes it can just get a bit too much.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so it started as when you were a child, but you didn't get the diagnosis until you were an adult. So I guess a lot of your formative years are affected.
Yeah, I went to university. I did a physics degree, but then didn't I didn't feel confident that that I could actually do this thing that I got a qualification for. Um, just yeah, lots of worry about not being good enough, and um, I've done work that is a lot. It feels like a lot less than what I'm capable of. You look at my school reports, then that's what it always says is could do more if only she'd focus. So yeah, it feels like I've always had this aim of something bigger that I should be able to achieve, and it's been a work in progress to try and get me to just go, no, it's okay to do less. I had developed chronic fatigue after I got swine flu, because I was pushing myself. Well, I believe it's because I was pushing myself to get back to normal again too quickly, and that's been another lesson in just trying to slow down and not try and achieve the world.
Mm.
So yeah, when I got chronic fatigue, then it did get to the point where I couldn't do anything. I had physiotherapists saying, "Oh, just go for a walk. Just do 5 minutes walk. Add another 5 minutes next day." And it's like it wiped me out. I couldn't do anything for the rest of the day. So yeah, it took me a long time to understand what was going on. But because with COVID now, with the effects of long COVID, I think there's a lot more understanding of chronic fatigue. But yeah, that was a big life change for me, was understanding how to live differently.
Yes. And I think getting back to the ADHD, that is understanding yourself, understanding what your needs are and how you can live in the world.
Yes, yes,
And I think there are so many professionals I'm going to say that too many professionals, I think, that don't have enough understanding and don't, and like the physiotherapists when you had the chronic fatigue, but they don't have enough understanding of the subject, and therefore they're not as effective in helping as they could be.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And when you're feeling, I wonder whether you're kind of struggling with that, with the things that you are struggling with, the way you are, is I think you haven't got the voice to be able to speak up and say, no, that's not working. You don't get me, because you go to somebody that you think will help you and you just follow it. I think that's the problem. And then, well, this isn't working. So that leaves you in a more worse situation of your anxiety.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. I'm talking to someone about, to an osteopath, about my physical stuff, and she's talking about her knowledge, but she has no knowledge about the mental health side of things. Yes.
Yeah, and that is the problem, isn't it? Because I think even if you go to your GP, I mean, my kind of experience is I will go with a particular thing. This part of my body isn't working as well as I want it to, or there's something wrong with this particular, a symptom. But they don't look at me holistically.
Yes.
And they'll say, oh, you've got a headache. Okay, we'll treat the headache. But actually, the headache could be related to something much more. But they will treat it in isolation, and they'll treat a symptom. And then I went to them recently because I've been suffering with migraines for many years. I've tried all kinds of alternatives rather than go with standard medication, because I know it's going to create other problems, and it has.
Yeah.
So I've gone with a migraine, and then so they've given me treatment, some medication, but that's caused me a side effect that is even worse than the migraine. And so it goes on. And then, I don't want some medication to treat the side effect, because then you're going to get something else. And I think we end up with a cocktail of stuff if we're not careful, because they're not, as you say, the physiotherapist only understands the physical part and doesn't understand the rest of it. And that, I think, is where we end up being so frustrated.
Yeah, we have to become an expert in ourselves.
Yes.
Because no one else is going to do that.
Yes, absolutely. That's what it's leading me on to, because I think we're the only ones that can figure it out and decide, well, actually, you haven't got a Scooby-Doo about what's going on for me. And I'm going to, I might need some help. And if that medication helps me, then that's okay. But yeah, I know myself better. And I think that's where I go from my point of view. When I'm working with a client, we work together. What works for you, what doesn't? And if they say, well, no, I didn't do that. Well, why was that you didn't feel that was helpful? And then, we can unravel it. Well, come on, let's dig a bit deeper. Let's find out what it is. And I'm kind of, one of my supervisors said that what we do is we get down and dirty. And I think we just, come on, we're going to get to the bottom of this, not just treat the symptom that you've brought, because that's not what's going on. That's not what's really the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, finding out understanding our own bodies and being in touch with them.
Yes, yeah. And I found that dance has been my freedom, to just, like, when you get things stuck in the body, just movement, my stims, my like, because I'm slightly anxious being on camera at the moment, then I'm aware that I'm starting to scratch my skin and stuff, because that's helping to like calm me and keep me focused. But there's something in me that is just going, yes, you need to move, you need to get up and dance, and listening to my body, listening to what it's telling me.
And I think people, not only with ADHD, but maybe they've got something that the way they struggle in the world, I'm going to put it that way, whether it's anxiety, depression, whatever.
Yeah.
And I think they find ways. You with dance, I mean, there are people that singing helps them.
Yeah.
Writing helps them. And I think it's finding that way, isn't it, that allows us to cope with whatever it is. And you say you need to move around. You need to get that movement going. So you've learned what it is that works for you. And I think that's a really great message to anybody listening to this. Find what it is that helps you. And don't go that, well, you've got to walk 5 minutes and then try another 5 minutes. If you don't like walking, it's not, and if it's leaving you more exhausted, that's not going to help chronic fatigue. So
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And I remember having some physiotherapy because with my migraines, I've got a lot of pain, and she gave me these exercises, and they're not even touching the sides. You don't even understand what I'm going through. And so, yes, it is frustrating when someone says, all you need to do is that. And you think, no, that's not working.
Yeah. The moment when you have someone hear you and validate your experiences, it's just incredible. I remember I had some pain in my neck at one point, and I was going all over the place and just having someone saying, I believe you. Just and relaxed, and suddenly the pain in my neck was, I mean, it was still there, but it was substantially less.
Yeah, validation is such a big thing, isn't it? Being heard, validated. So you set up a Facebook group, haven't you? And it is called Neuroquirky.
Yeah.
And it is, from what you tell me. Well, no, you tell us what it's about, because
oh well, it is. It's about me exploring, telling people about myself and things that I see in myself and others, as a way to get people to relate to what's going on with themselves. Like, if I can share tips about what helps me, then it may be that you go, oh yes, that's what I need. But it might be that my story, just listening to my story, gives you something to go, oh, this might work for me instead. I find sometimes when I tell stories, then it invokes stories in others. So there's a part of the page that I've dedicated to stories, although since I've said that that's what I'm going to do, I've only had one story come to me to write down, but I'm sure that will change. So I'm just seeing where it goes. If people come to the group that are interested in having regular dancing, then I can set that up. If people are interested in body doubling, which is an ADHD tool to help with getting things done, then I've got an interest in doing that, but I don't have people at the moment. So yeah, I've got lots of ideas, and I just want to see who comes to see what they would be interested in.
Oh, that's lovely that you're sharing all of that, because I think there is a great need when people feel that lost and isolated, and it's only just me. There's something wrong with me. I'm feeling so alone. I think, yes, what you're doing is, I'm sure people would find your resources and your help and support quite invaluable. Yeah. Thank you for that. So, one tip that people can take with them.
For me, it's dance. It's about dance. So yes, when in doubt, dance.
Wonderful. Yes, I love that. So I'm going to put your details in the show notes, but one easy way that people can get in touch with you.
My Facebook group, if you come to find me, Neuroquirky, then
Neuroquirky. I love it. Thank you so much for today, Kirstine. It's been a delight talking to you, and thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you. It's been lovely to be here.
I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I'd love to hear from you and what you think, so do get in touch. If you'd like to learn more about me, how I help people who are struggling with issues relating to their personal life or relationships, as well as finding out how you can work with me, go to my website, www.wendykatewell.co.uk, where you can find my contact details and book a free call with me. You really don't have to struggle alone. Until next time, take care. Bye.